Welcome to the Holistic Matters podcast, sponsored by Standard Process. Standard Process is a trusted brand at the forefront of high-quality, whole food-based nutritional supplements. Visit holisticmatters.com for a wide range of holistic health content, including articles, videos, continuing education, and more to keep you up to date on the latest nutrition science and herbal health trends. I'm today's host, Dr. Sarah Clarke, chiropractor, functional medicine practitioner, and Standard Process clinical educator. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Today, we are so lucky to have David Hogsed with us. David is a doctor of Oriental medicine and an acupuncture physician. He currently is in practice at the Restoration Healthcare Clinic in Fort Myers, Florida. His practice specializes in combining nutritional and herbal therapies with pulsed electromagnetic field therapy and hyperbaric oxygen. David has taught seminars for many years, and they're best known for simplifying clinical nutrition, herbal medicine, laboratory testing, and biohacking technologies. He's also been a clinical consultant and a speaker for Standard Process since 2003. So we are really lucky to have him here today. Thank you so much for being here, Dave, and for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Oh, you're so welcome, but I feel very lucky. You guys have the coolest nutrition website, hands down. And I can't tell you what a blessing it's been to me whenever I want to research, do a deep dive on any food. Always go to Holistic Matters first. And I have to confess, I have not scratched the surface of what's available on the website yet. That is my goal for the next 5 years.
There's a lot to dig into there, so you're not alone.
Yeah,
There's always new things being added, so it's a great resource.
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I would love to just get a little bit of background from you. I know you have such an extensive background in terms of your education in traditional Chinese medicine, and I'm just curious if this philosophy helped you start incorporating nutrition with your clients or kind of what that journey has been like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so excited to do this podcast today because when you reached out to me about a month ago, I was trying to think what could I possibly add to, the vast library of topics that's on Holistic Matters. And I started thinking, and I realized the only thing I've never really seen is a deep dive into the benefits of organ meats, all the benefits of, these poor, forgotten organ meats that have so much nutritional value, so many clinical applications for, what health professionals are seeing day in and day out. And I realized that, all these years of doing clinical nutrition, sometimes I forget that my first introduction to clinical nutrition was with organ meat glandular therapy. So some people that are listening have heard this story, but I was 15 years old. I was the shortest kid in my class, way behind, for having my growth spurt. Really wanted to play basketball, all sorts of traumatic things going on there. And my dad was a chiropractor, and he wasn't really using nutrition yet in his practice, but he took me to a nutrition seminar. And it was, you'd go up front in front of everybody and get evaluated, get put on a nutrition protocol. And it was my turn. I'd never been to any nutrition seminar ever. This was a totally new world to me. And I go up there and the doctor evaluates me. And he said, this boy, I tell him, my chief concern is I want to grow. He evaluates me and he said, in front of a group of like 200 doctors, he said, this boy has a pituitary problem. And if he doesn't take pituitary extracts, he's going to remain a boy for the rest of his life. That was my very first awkward, embarrassing introduction to this whole world of nutrition. So he recommended pituitary glandulars. I took it, and I wish I'd taken, better notes of the timeline when it kicked in, how much I grew, but I grew to a normal height, within a year of doing that. Pituitary glandular unlocked whatever was inhibiting my growth hormone. I grew to a normal height, and I just knew right then I want to be doing this for the rest of my life. Like, this is really profound stuff. And then that led me into Oriental medicine and getting an herbal background and lots of fun stuff springing from that. But it all started with organ meats. As I was preparing for this and just realizing all the cases that I've worked with, I love herbal medicine, I love nutritional therapies. But if I didn't have access to organ meat concentrates, I wouldn't get half, the great clinical results that I do. It's just such an indispensable part of health. It always has been, but I think what, we can think of with organ meats now, it's kind of a now more than ever food with how many nutritional deficiencies we have, soil depletion. Organ meats are the most nutritional dense foods on the planet, and they can fill in the gaps of nutritional deficiencies better than any other food that we have access to. So, yeah, that's kind of my story how I got into all this.
I love that. Thank you for sharing and talk about a personal kind of inspiration to
Yeah.
get into the field and then want to help more people in that way.
Since that time, I probably had 5 patients of boys that were in the exact same scenario, and I gave them pituitary and they grew to a normal height. So that's just super rewarding being able to pass that on.
Absolutely. And you get to share your story and know that it can get better
Yep,
and there's something to help, which is always helpful, I think, for patients to hear.
absolutely.
That's great. And I think organ meats probably are something that a lot of people might not even be thinking about, right? We go to the grocery store and it's not like it's right there. It's not on the shelf. I mean,
Oh no, they're gone.
it might be there, but we're just not seeing it, right? It might not be like on the,
Oh no, they're gone. Those foods are gone.
oh, they're gone. Okay. I was like, oh no, am I missing it? But yeah, maybe they're hidden in the back. They're just not, for sale or on discount.
No, no, you're absolutely right. Many people are thinking, I would say the vast majority of people, even really health conscious, people obsessed with nutrition, organ meats are the forgotten superfood. And they're starting to make a comeback, but it's very slow. And yeah, that's why I'm excited to do this today to try to accelerate that comeback of organ meats.
Exactly, because I think that's something that we've kind of talked about in the past is like the traditional use of them and the fact that they're really something that's been around for thousands of years. And
Yeah.
now, for whatever reason, it's just been untapped kind of in the modern society. So, if you have any insight into kind of when they first started being used, or have they been in the US for a long time? I know around the world they've been traditionally used, but any insight into kind of
As far back as human history goes, people have consumed organ meats, and it wasn't just a geographical thing. It was, all over the world. And, many people are aware of the Weston Price Foundation, named after Dr. Weston Price. And that nutritional pioneer, I believe, is in the 1930s. He traveled the entire world and he just wanted to study what healthy cultures ate. This was right when the US food supply was starting to become processed, void of really key nutrients. And yes, organ meats were starting to fade and disappear. And what Dr. Price found was almost every healthy culture that he studied, he called them primitive, diets because they weren't exposed to these modern foods yet. Almost all of them had organ meats, bone extracts, things like that. So it's kind of, it's not a new fad. It's something that used to be the norm. And in many areas of the world, it's still the norm. We're kind of the weirdos in the US that we don't do organ meats. We're one of the might be the only country that doesn't have like organ meats as a staple of the diet, routinely.
yeah, absolutely.
But you could even go back to, yeah, you mentioned I'm an acupuncturist in traditional Chinese medicine, a system of medicine that's been around thousands of years. It was just always known that eating that organ would support that organ in your body. If you had liver issues, you would eat liver. If you had heart issues, you would eat heart. And that was just such a well known concept. Just how recently those things faded from our culture. One of the things I love to do in every seminar that I give is I ask the audience, how many of you grew up eating liver? And it's usually about 70% of the hands will go up that, they had a mean mom that forced them to eat liver at least once a week. And then I say, how many of you still eat liver? And it goes from 70% of the room to like 3 lonely hands, going up. This is a major dietary cultural shift where we lost our pretty much greatest superfood. And, we're going to talk about different organ meats and nutritional values of those organ meats, but liver is the king of organ meats. So we could say organ meats are, the most nutrient dense foods on the planet, but liver is the most nutrient dense organ meat out of all the organs you could possibly eat. That's kind of going to be a recurring theme today. If you can just get one organ meat back into your life, it's going to be liver.
That is wonderful. And do you think there's a main reason why those practitioners, even though they grew up on it, they kind of strayed away? And these are obviously smart practitioners, right?
Oh, it's an easy reason. It's disgusting. The reason it just disappeared in the US is, we became addicted to convenience, good taste, and let's face it, liver is not the most pleasant food. Now there are ways to sneak it in, to the diet that is a little more palatable. But I always like to joke that, the last time this country was unified about anything was when we all collectively decided, maybe in the 1970s or 80s, liver is disgusting and we're not going to eat it anymore. But what happened with that choice is, that's what everybody decided is like, no, we're gonna leave liver aside. But we lost our absolute best B vitamin source. Every B vitamin is in liver. It's hands down the absolute best superfood for B vitamins. Zinc, one of the best food sources of zinc. Iron for blood building. So if you went back, 70, 80 years ago, if you were anemic, even if you went to just a traditional medical doctor, odds are they would probably tell you to eat liver to, boost your blood back up, to get the iron, the B12, all these other, blood feeding nutrients. That never happens anymore. When was the last time you ever heard of a doctor recommending to an anemic patient, I think you should eat liver? Even if they recommended it, it probably wouldn't happen.
Probably, yeah. Not
Yeah.
in the last, 30, 40 years. Maybe they weren't even doing it back then. I don't know.
I somewhere along that line, it disappeared completely. And you're seeing like a big comeback of a lot of traditional foods, like, fermented foods to get our probiotics, fish oil, and even cod liver oil, which we could almost say is a organ meat. It's coming from the liver of that cod fish. Bone broth, is making a comeback, bone products, things like that, bone protein powders. But liver, that's a tough one. And thankfully, another recurring theme today is these are the easiest, best times to get liver and other organ meats back into your body, because now we have the technology to make them in supplement, painless, non-disgusting forms that we can just swallow. So I always like to say, there's a lot of foods that are so important, so essential for optimal health. You either must eat them or take them as a supplement. In my mind, organ meats are the ultimate take it or eat it food. There's just so many nutrients that are so hard to get if you're not eating organ meats. But there's no excuse now because they're so easy, capsule, tablet form. They're more readily available than ever before.
That's great for people to remember. I know that they're
It's great for me. I'm not going to eat liver.
right? And even if we're trying to sneak it into foods, I'm even thinking of like people with young kids, right? Like I have a 1-year-old and I don't know if I'd be able to sneak it in really, right? I mean, it's hard to sneak it in that way in a food form. So that's really good to think about.
Yeah.
Just in terms of getting those nutritional gaps, right? I think it's what you said is so important. Our diets are just so devoid of so many nutrients now. So people just really have to be the head of their own health and feel empowered to make sure they're filling in those gaps. And it's hard. It's just another thing to think about to add to the list of
Yep.
to-dos.
Pills. That's the way to go. But actually, I will say there, I know there's somebody listening that's going to be inspired to actually cook it, incorporate it in their diet. So here's an easy tip right off the bat. If you're trying to, like you said, for your family, sneak liver in under the radar where they don't even ever have to even know it, you can mix ground beef. You can get about 25% liver mixed with the ground beef and they'll never even know it. And you created a superfood just by doing that. And, like you said, it's hard to find organ meats at the grocery stores now. You might see it more in some specialty grocery stores, but where it's really the best to find it now is online. There's so many sources online that you can just get organ meats shipped to your doorstep. So that's a positive trend that's happening right now.
I think people like that convenience too.
Absolutely.
When they don't have to go look at it, it's just shipped to the door, really nice and easy.
Don't have to buy a cow, do a cow share program.
Don't have to live on a farm, it can come to
Nope.
you. It's great. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up bone broth. I think that that is one that
Oh, yeah, it's
is
huge.
easy to find at the grocery store. Like I see that everywhere. It's kind of like all over social media too. But just thinking about all the things that provides because it is the actual bones that then are boiled and cooked, and those nutrients can then come into the broth. So you talked about gut health. Like I even think about glutamine for repairing the gut lining.
Well, think of this too. Bone was the original. Everybody knows about glucosamine supplements now, right? Glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate. Like everybody out there knows that, if you've got joint issues, arthritis, things like that, you take glucosamine. But bone is the original and best food source of glucosamine. So grandma knew what she was doing with that bone broth. There was so much that we got in there. In my practice, I use bone extracts every single day, not just for bone health, joint health. You mentioned gut repair, but a really forgotten benefit. And I would, right next to liver for organ meats, I would put bone extracts as being the most important that everybody at some point is going to need. One of the most forgotten benefits of bone products, bone extracts or bone broth, is we forget that our immune system, our whole immune system starts in our bone marrow with making white blood cells. So if we don't have healthy bone marrow, we don't have an immune system. And, I use all the herbs like echinacea and vitamin C extracts and all that. But my most effective bone supplements that I recommend to patients or immune supplements that I always recommend to patients, they always contain bone extract for that reason. And they work phenomenally well.
I'm glad you brought that up. And it just made me think about actually when my dog was little, I would go to the grocery store and I actually found bones with the bone marrow in it that were frozen.
Oh, nice.
And I remember I would grab it and then bring it to work in my office, and people would look at me, very weirdly. I was holding a bag of bones with bone marrow, but I would give it to her. And now I probably should have had it myself. I thought it was just helping my dog. I should have been eating it myself.
I'm so glad you brought that up about the pets because without fail, the animals instinctively know the value of organ meats. So so many people listening have had this experience if they have pets or, when they've given supplements with these organ meats to patients and they'll take them home. If they like spill the bottle or, break the bottle on the ground and all those supplements go flying everywhere, the dogs, the cat, they'll swoop in and they will devour instantly anything that has organ meats, whether it's bone, liver. They absolutely love liver. The dogs are smarter than us for sure. They know what they need. Yeah.
They can probably smell it.
Yep.
They
Yep.
smell it from a mile away. They're excited. That's awesome. And I think one other thing to think about is just like with our society, I know heart issues are just rampant. Cardiovascular issues we know are one of the main causes of mortality. And so when we're thinking about heart, that would be another one, right? Beef heart.
Oh, huge. Yeah. And that would be, it wasn't as common in the US that people ate heart, but if you find somebody old enough, they probably have a background where at least they had heart sometimes growing up, or they knew somebody that ate heart. But the nutritional value of heart, going back, like everybody knows glucosamine, and that's bone. Everybody knows B vitamins. Liver is the ultimate food source of that. Everybody now knows about CoQ10, but we never talk about the fact that glandular, whether it's beef heart, chicken heart, that is the absolute best food source of CoQ10 and other heart supporting nutrients like carnitine, but especially the CoQ10. You're going to find CoQ10 in all organ meats and muscle extract, but it's very concentrated in heart tissue. So if you want the ultimate CoQ10 supplement, eat that heart or take it as a supplement.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I think we know what everybody's going to choose.
yeah, I think so. In terms of just the depletion of CoQ10 with statins, is that something you think people should be thinking about in terms of like dietary changes if they are on certain medications?
Absolutely. So, statins, I believe still currently are the number one prescription drug in the US. And they not only deplete CoQ10, but I'm so glad you brought that up. The number one side effect of statins is muscle pain, joint pain, muscle weakness. So supplementing with heart goes way beyond just supplementing with CoQ10. There's a lot of people that know, okay, if I'm taking a statin, I need to take CoQ10. But supplementing with heart goes far beyond that for the statin patients, because it's not only going to replace the CoQ10 that they're losing, but it's going to support their muscles throughout their whole body. It doesn't just target the heart. When you eat heart, you're going to support all your muscles. So it's really the absolute best tool to try to minimize that very common statin side effect.
Absolutely. And when you're talking about things like myalgia, I'm just thinking about take that heart, put it in some bone broth. You're getting those anti-inflammatory mediators going around and
Yeah, absolutely.
just supporting everything.
Just keep
And
stacking those organs one on top of another.
right, exactly. Awesome.
We'd like to take a quick moment to mention our sponsor, Standard Process. Standard Process, a family-owned company, makes high-quality, whole food-based nutritional supplements. Standard Process was a pioneer in whole food nutrition. Many of the ingredients used in the company's whole food-based supplements are grown on-site on their 850-acre certified organic farm. They're passionate about cultivating nutrient-dense soil, which maximizes the nutrient density of the plants that end up in their products. Standard Process is inspiring a new era of whole food nutrition innovation that remains dedicated to your practice, your patients, and your health. To learn more about Standard Process, visit standardprocess.com/only@sp.
What about, I do want to talk about stress because I think that that is a really key issue in the US. I'm sure you're seeing a lot of patients that are stressed out, burned out, they're busy, they're just going and maybe they feel exhausted. So, any thoughts on that in terms of what could be helpful for those patients or practitioners who are listening?
Yep, I'm going to be a broken record about liver all day today. Liver, everybody again knows when you're stressed, you're losing more B vitamins. You got to replace those B vitamins. So I give liver to every single patient for multiple reasons, but stress would rank pretty high up there. Sleeping problems, stress, all those things that we need B vitamins for. We always have needed that extra boost from liver for B vitamins, but going back to that now more than ever concept, the more sugar we eat, the more white flour we eat, alcohol we drink, there's a lot of medications that deplete B vitamins. So our need for liver is increasing all the time. But again, the sad thing is it's less consumed, than ever before. Another organ meat that is really indispensable for stress is adrenal glandular extract. And this is something nobody eats. Some people might eat liver out there, but not many people are able to get adrenal concentrates from a local butcher or something like that. But the value of adrenal glands for people that are stressed are multiple. Going back first to that, like consuming a food supporting the like organ, just from the vitamin C standpoint, your body concentrates vitamin C in the adrenal glands more than any other tissue. So we not only lose B vitamins when we're stressed, but we lose a lot of vitamin C. So supplementing with some kind of adrenal glandular extract is one of the best things to keep our vitamin C levels high. But this goes to, kind of another point is we could talk a lot about all the nutrients in these organ meats that we know and that we've known about for a long time. But what's just starting to be researched is the unknown nutrients, that we've never known about in organ meats that you can only find because vitamin C you can find in plant foods, right? And there's some creative ways you can get B vitamins in whole grains and, other combinations of foods. But there's specific proteins and specifically something called microRNA that's unique in organ meats that you're not going to find in any other plant, any herb, that when you eat that microRNA is going to support that organ in your body. So when you eat adrenal, there's still some unknown things in there that are going to support your adrenal glands. There's things we know and there's things we don't know. Don't wait till we know all those factors. If you're stressed, if you're depleted, you definitely want to find some way to get adrenal glandular into your diet.
Absolutely. And would that be one of the reasons too, the difference between organ meats and like a skeletal muscle meat?
Right. Yeah.
So
So
I'm just thinking of people who are maybe thinking, well, I eat a lot of beef or I eat chicken thighs. Like, am I getting it?
and that's great. There's going to be zinc and, the protein factors. But if you want to support a specific organ, you have to get that organ, in most cases. Riskiest diet is a super strict vegetarian that doesn't eat any meat. And then, the more balanced approach is people that are getting meat products and, the best of the vegetable kingdom. The ultimate nutritional strategy is get your superstar vegetables, get enough animal protein from meat, but then also layer on top of that the organ meats to get those special concentrated nutrients that you can't find really in any other food source.
Definitely. I think that's really helpful. And that is actually one of the first things I brought in terms of supplements was adrenal glandular because I was stressed out. And it's just,
Yeah,
I think more and more kids, I just keep hearing about that, how kids are under more and more stress. So I think it's just good to think about the ways that we can support our nutrition naturally.
there's a lot of supplements that have adrenal extracts sprinkled into it. But I'm so glad you brought that up. Like, if life has just beaten your adrenal glands down and you're completely exhausted, you wake up tired, especially the big tip off that you should be really consuming adrenal glandulars heavily is that strong afternoon fatigue, like between that 2 to 3 time slot. That's the classic adrenal fatigue. And what I do for my patients with that and for myself personally is just supplements that are purely just adrenal glandular. And there's nothing that works like that. One more tip that I've never seen fail with that is people that when they stand up and they stand up quickly and they just get lightheaded, they get dizzy, the room spins for a few seconds and then they're okay. 99% of the time, that is a really definitive symptom of adrenal gland exhaustion because your adrenal glands are responsible for keeping your blood pressure from dropping too much when you stand up. So if your adrenal glands are really depleted and you stand up and you just get dizzy, I've never seen anything work as well for my patients as just giving them adrenal glands. It's pretty magic how that works. Usually within 2 weeks, they can feel a big difference with that.
Yeah, that's such a good clinical pearl. Because I think a lot of people, when they hit that 2 to 3 p.m. slump, they just reach for more coffee or reach for something sugary, which is doing the exact opposite, right? Like it's going to be depleting
Yep.
that magnesium and the B vitamins. And so, really, just making the problem worse rather than putting something in that's going to help give them that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Our reliance on caffeine is like writing checks against our adrenal bank account and our B vitamins and like you said, magnesium. So yeah, the more caffeine that you're consuming, the more your need for liver goes up, the more your need for adrenals go up. You're
Absolutely.
bringing us some great points, sir.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I think it's just great to think about just going back to these traditional foods. Like I can't get over how even just like we were talking about like your grandma's chicken soup and you're getting sick and she's like, "No, eat this," right? Like I made it from scratch. It's been cooking for 24 hours, all these good things.
Yeah,
And I love how I think the science is catching up more now to be like, "Oh, this is exactly what is happening in your body. This is the mechanism."
yeah.
And we're just learning more and more, which I am passionate about.
I think in the next, as it is getting more popular, you're going to see more and more studies. But if you go to something like PubMed now, it's so small the amount of studies that you see. So it's really you can wait for those studies to come out, or you can just look back at human history and see what healthy people have consumed for thousands of years, and really take that evidence as justification for incorporating organ meats into your diet.
Yeah, definitely. And I love what you talked about in terms of liver and all of the vitamins and minerals it contains. And I also was thinking about glutathione and how it contains not only glutathione, but then precursors like cysteine and selenium. So it's like helping the body just
Yeah, absolutely.
endogenously produce more glutathione, which is so important just for our detoxification. But I just think about almost like a craze now, right? Like people are looking for it outside of our bodies, but really, if we're just focusing on that nutrition and natural ways for our body to make it, that can be helpful too.
Yeah, and I mean, we could take it a step further and say that liver is the ultimate multivitamin. If you just want to get a little bit of everything, there's no other food like liver. And it made me think too, there's a lot of health practitioners listening right now. One of the most common complaints that we hear if you're using supplements in your practice of any kind is, why so many pills? Or is there any way I can minimize the supplements that I'm taking? And I'm telling you, liver is the ultimate food. If you want to minimize how many bottles of supplements you need to take, there's nothing like liver to just level the playing field. You get your B vitamins, your zinc, your iron. We didn't even talk about vitamin A. Liver is one of the best food sources of vitamin A for your immune system, your eyes. You mentioned the glutathione factors, all those kinds of things. So it's not that, liver is going to fix everything, but is the ultimate food to fill in the gaps and ensure that somebody is going to need a minimal amount of supplements in addition to liver. But to me, liver is just the foundational food.
Absolutely. I think we're bringing liver back, and I think we might need to make t-shirts. I think that might be the next step here to really get everyone on board.
I can't wait to see that. I'm really curious what graphic you're going to use when this podcast is on the website. I was thinking about that. I love Holistic Matters, all the beautiful pictures of the herbs, the foods. And I'm like, what picture are they going to show for this? Is it going to be just this big glistening slab of liver? I can't wait to see what you come up with.
Might have to be an aesthetically pleasing liver. That's
Yep.
that's what I envision.
Some onions on there. Yep.
Exactly, with our great team. Awesome. Well, any other, I guess, kind of clinical pearls or clinical scenarios that you've thought about with patients and bringing in these amazing organ meats or these glandulars that stick out to you? I
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
yeah, our practitioners would probably love to hear your wisdom.
So, we mentioned, for B vitamin stress, we talked about liver. For vitamin C, adrenal extracts. We talked about bone extracts for immune support, but another really key, and I would say the most important organ meat for people struggling with immune system problems is thymus extract. So thymus gland, we even forget we have a thymus gland, let alone, eating thymus. But this would be a term some people might remember from days gone by, sweetbread. So sweetbread was an organ meat combination of thymus and pancreas that people used to do. And it totally has disappeared, from our diet now. But when somebody is struggling, especially when it's too late, they haven't been feeding their immune system with zinc and vitamin C and all those things we know keep our immune system strong. And it's too late. They know they're compromised. You got a sore throat, cough, whatever it is. The number one tool in my arsenal is always thymus glandular extract. I mean, I love using herbs. I love using, foods to support immunity, but consistently what I've gotten the best feedback from my patients for rapidly supporting their immune system, in many cases, just within a day or 2 days, they're through it. They've totally gotten through that immune challenge, is thymus glandular extract. There's nothing like it. When your immune system is already behind and you want to really rapidly mobilize those T cells, get all the white blood cells fired up, consuming really concentrated thymus gland, there's no substitute for it.
That's awesome.
You asked for other clinical pearls with it. Definitely anemia with liver. I could show you so many before and after blood tests, people with anemia where the main supplements I use were just liver-based formulas. A really disgusting one we haven't talked about yet is brain. So this is not nearly as commonly consumed in the past as liver. But if you look at, quite a few countries across the world, brain is a normal thing. And for my people with concussions, memory issues, but I'd say especially, the head trauma, as important as herbs like curcumin, ginkgo, those kind of things are, top on my list is brain extracts. It just work phenomenally well. That's a lot of unknown factors that we don't know quite, what's happening there. But one of the benefits of brain glandular extracts is it's one of the best, if not the best, food source of phosphatidylserine. And a lot of people take that as a separate supplement for lowering cortisol. So you talked about, the effects of liver and adrenal for stress. Brain is one of the best stress management foods. And again, just to calm everybody that's listening, it's available in tablet or capsule form. You do not have to try to track down a source of brain to eat it. But a lot of my people that I've had that have that high cortisol, overactive thinking at night, B vitamin supplements that are combined with brain extract work phenomenally well just to get that cortisol lower and get them in a calm state for sleep. Spleen is another one we haven't mentioned yet. That's a disgusting one. That is never we can make all the t-shirts in the world. Nobody's going to eat spleen. It tastes terrible, smells terrible, but it combines very well with bone and thymus for comprehensive immune support. And yeah, when people have had just a really compromised immune system for a long period of time, low white blood cells, on a lab test, I just like feeding them every gland that we know of to support the immune system: thymus, bone, and spleen. Spleen also, like adrenal, is one of the best sources of vitamin C. So it's just one more tool in the immune arsenal. What other organ meats? We talked about heart for heart weakness. Well, let's get gross again. Testicle and ovary extract for low hormone situations. So this would be Rocky Mountain oysters with bull testicles. That was a fairly common food in certain geographical regions. But my guys with low testosterone, giving them testicular extracts like that, it doesn't always work, but many, many times it will encourage their body to make testosterone on their own, and especially in women with ovarian extracts, hot flashes, low progesterone, fertility issues. That's something we really need to bring back into public consciousness is if you've got hormone problems, male or female, you got to supplement with that organ meat, glandular, gonadal support.
Thank you so much for sharing.
You think we've discussed it, everybody listening so far?
Maybe. But hey, this is great information, and thank you for sharing those clinical pearls. I love what you said about thymus too, because I think as we age, our thymus gland shrinks naturally.
Oh, absolutely.
Even for aging population, if clinicians are seeing a lot of aging patients, that could be something just to keep in mind just for support.
Well, it seems to be both ends of the spectrum, both the shrinking thymus as we get older. The older a patient gets, the more they rely on thymus supplementation for optimal immunity, but also our very, very young patients where the thymus gland isn't fully developed and operational. It seems to be those two spectrums of aging where thymus gland has the most profound immune benefits.
So interesting. This is awesome. Anything else you want to share with our listeners today? I mean, you've given us so much wisdom already, but if there's anything else, I just want to open it up to you because I think we covered a lot of great information.
Yeah, I think, whether you're a practitioner or just want to support the health of your family, it's not an end all be all answer. But whenever you know what organs are not working optimally in your body, you're never, ever wrong supplementing with that organ as part of your health strategy to get that organ back on track. There's going to be other things that are needed with it, but this is just a thousands of year time tested strategy, whether it's from Chinese medicine, Europe, Africa, every continent has relied on organ meats. When organs aren't working, you eat that specific organ to get them back on track. And I think, the other final thought with it is 20 years ago, there might have been an excuse for people not doing organ meats, but there's so many options now. It's easier than ever. It's very cost effective. In fact, it's probably more cost effective to get these things in supplement form than to try to track down all these individual organs to eat in your diet. That would be my parting advice. And if you had to take one message away, is liver is the king of organ meats. Organ meats are the ultimate superfood, but liver is the ultimate organ meat. Find some way to get liver into your diet. One that people might be interested in researching, finding online is a good liverwurst, which combines liver, kidney, heart, and ground beef. So a lot of really superstar organ meats disguised, hidden in ground beef, and actually tastes pretty good if you get a good source of it.
That is wonderful. I think that's probably easier for most people since nowadays most people aren't going out and getting a full animal and then eating all of those organ meats. It's just
Yep,
a little bit of a different society, at least in the US, for most of the US.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate you being here and for sharing all of that knowledge.
Thank you.
I think practitioners can take a lot away from today and they're going to remember liver. I think that they got that.
Liver, liver, liver.
Even without a t-shirt, I think they're going to remember it. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Such a privilege to be on with you.
I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Tune in every first and third Thursday for new Holistic Matters episodes, and be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Remember to visit holisticmatters.com for a wide range of holistic health content to keep you up to date on the latest nutrition science and herbal health trends. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And a special thank you to our sponsor, Standard Process. Thank you for listening. Visit holisticmatters.com for more content. And remember, that's holistic with a W.